to clarify, to confirm that they're not conflicting, or, don't, what we do doesn't duplicate their work and vice versa, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, if there's questions that come up about that, please let me know, because I'm working on getting maybe more like an FAQ together so that everyone could be on the same page.
Yeah. Okay. Because we're going to support your efforts.
Yeah. And because they're talking about a working group, whereas like we've done all the groundwork now, like we're ready to do this. Let's do it.
Okay. Hey, I haven't seen Ted yet. Is Ted going to be? I know he has to leave early.
He should be here. I don't see him I don't see him yet.
Yeah, I don't see someone like Kat here yet, but
do we have
the legislature doing fun things?
Who's at the bottom?
Mikey,
is it KF at the bottom? AF?
I'm not sure who that is.
Well, I'm all for transparency, not secrecy. I love it. And Aaron, I'm Mike.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi, Aaron. I met you yesterday.
Yes, yeah. I was saying I get to see you 2 days in a row now.
Do you want me to text Ted?
Oh, here's Ted. I just see him in the waiting room. All right, we have Pat. And I know Mark is going to do his best to join. I know he's in Florida, I believe.
Okay, Ted's here. Yeah, Mark was going to be at the airport, so if he was able to join us, he was going to try to.
Hi, Ted.
Hi.
Hey, Ted.
Hi, Mike. Hi, Ron.
Hi, Ted.
Hey, Martha.
I'm still here, doing the work I did 20 years ago.
Pardon me?
I'm doing the work I did 20 years ago, reviewing bills.
Oh, yeah.
Could I ask who AF and LM are? God forbid. No, we don't know.
Hi, I'm Ariel. I'm Aaron's research assistant analyst. Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Yeah, no
I didn't
problem.
recognize the abbreviation for a second. I wonder, but thanks, Ariel.
No problem.
She's going to help me kind of track it in case there's extra questions or follow up. And then of course, we're trying to make sure we coordinate with your work and collaborate and keep the communication going. So.
Okay, we need to open this meeting. It is now 2:00. And on the agenda, really the only thing we're discussing is bills. Our agenda today relates to legislative bills. And first, as a roll call will be done, Mark is not here today, but Martha is present. Ted, are you present?
I think I am.
Barely. Mike?
I'm here.
And Ron?
Yeah, here.
So we can get started. And we also have with us today, Aaron, I forget your last name.
Aaron Harbinson.
Harbinson. And Aaron is the head of the data system that was created by, was it Act 179 or another act?
Same act.
179, okay. And a couple of bills relate to data. So we're going to ask first if she could just give us a short presentation before we start our bill review. So Aaron, if you could go.
All right. First, I just want to say thank you so much to the Oversight Coordinator and the commissioners for having me today. I really appreciate it. As was mentioned, we're passed in the same act, and collaborating on this work is really important. And I'll do just a brief overview. I try to keep it as short as possible. But of course, if you have questions or need additional information, I'm here for that. I know you have a full agenda, and I didn't want to make your entire discussion all about data because I know there's lots of important things to talk about today. Sorry, I do need access to do screen sharing. I just got a note here.
Kristen, can you make that happen, the screen share?
George,
Or I can send our presentation too, in case that's easier.
Yeah, and it would be good if we could post it on our website too, because anything that's presented to us, post.
Oh, of course.
Okay, thank you, George.
Yeah, I apologize. I meant to check that right away when I logged in. And I can send it just so you have that for reference. And of course, as materials to keep on your site.
Aaron, who is LM at the bottom of my screen?
That I actually don't know. I only have one staff person.
LM, can you tell? Is this a public meeting? Maybe it's a public, which is fine.
Oh, it's a public meeting.
Cassandra Chi. I see Cassie's here. Okay, good. More the merrier. Hi, Cassie.
George, I'll send this to but I could kind of get started here. I don't want to take up too much of your time. George, I just sent the presentation so I can pull it up when you get it. Yeah, I figured that's easier. I should have done that in the first place. I apologize. So I can get started. Again, I'm Erin Harbinson, the director of the Criminal Justice Research Institute. And we're, one of our really big main tasks and priorities under the law is to assess the feasibility and establish a centralized statewide criminal pretrial data reporting system with the goal that this system would help evaluate the pretrial system with metrics and with evaluation to inform the commission's work and others who are engaged in reforming the system. And with that in mind, I did just want to emphasize, a lot of it, or some of the language does emphasize assessing the feasibility and, reviewing data sets, reviewing the systems, what the IT systems are, what data is where, and, how is stored, the quality of that data, so to speak. And that's the work that we, engaged in right away. I've been here about 2 years and then hired first staff person about a year ago. And, so really getting a lay of the land, what data is where, what sources should we target to pull this information together to report out on the pretrial system. And I can go without slides, so I'll keep talking. One of the things that we did too was to ensure that we really understood the policy landscape in addition to not just legislative and administrative policies, but also how operations work, knowing that there's lots of discretion in the field and there's a lot of things that happen kind of informally in the system. And, also mapped out what databases were where, what kind of data was housed, so what databases would need to be targeted to pull into the centralized data system, and also really collaborating with the agencies involved to ensure that anything that was developed was something that was actually feasible, that would get the data that was needed, but also, collected in a way that was comprehensively collected or the type of information that we needed. Another thing that we did too is we talked to some other states that are engaged in this work. So around the time that the pretrial task force came together and kind of, really came up with this idea of a criminal justice research institute to come together or to create a centralized data source to study the system, some other states have begun initiating similar work. And what we've learned is these are really multi-year projects. They're very intensive because you're talking about, of course, different systems or different agencies in the systems with different laws, different data sharing rules, different IT systems, different data definitions even. And so it's not a matter of simply just merging a bunch of data into a spreadsheet. There's a lot of systematic things you have to work through. Additionally, there's really no one-size-fits-all technology solution for something like this. You end up really customizing it to your state's data landscape and policy landscape. But we did talk to some other states who were engaged in similar work to learn, just what worked for them, what didn't. We have a couple of examples and can share more if that's ever of interest. But one such example is the state of Ohio is creating a centralized state sentencing platform. And their work, I believe, initiated in 2019, and they're just starting to pilot their data system now. So just giving an example, they initiated some of this work in 2019 and are now starting to pilot some of this in the process. Another state, Illinois, is bringing together their data systems and has a similar mandate under law to create a centralized pretrial database. And a lot of the data work they initiated, I believe, was in 2018 to start mapping out data, figuring out what the technology solution would be to do this. And they're still in the process of putting together their database. So those are just a few examples. Happy to share more if people are interested. And I don't know if the PowerPoint went through yet, George. That might be a good time for me to pull up a few slides, because I think some of the visuals just kind of help explain what we mean by database and what's where, if that's possible. But if not, I can also just keep going.
No.
Oh, that's. I'm sorry that doesn't go through yet.
Erin,
Yes.
This is Martha, and maybe at another meeting we really do a full-blown presentation of what you're trying to accomplish, because we only have a limited time today, and we do have to go through our bills, but we need your presence here because of the data bills.
Okay. Well, what I can do then is just wrap it up and say the appropriation request is designed to address these barriers that I've mapped out. And so what we will do is we are requesting funds to build a system that would create pathways essentially for these three databases to extract data into one platform. And from an IT perspective, it's creating the pathways and infrastructure so that data can be shared regularly to us and stored in this centralized database. And then there's a data storage component, which is the literal database that we would then be creating. And so we would be housing these merged and linked records so that we would have the database, the centralized statewide database as outlined in Act 179. And then from there, that's the capacity then to report out on the pretrial metrics in the pretrial system. With jails, of course, as you're aware, they're very dynamic. And so the idea is to invest in this data capacity so that we can turn around questions about how the system is working and what's going on very quickly, because creating this centralized database builds the capacity to do that. Without creating the infrastructure, without creating that centralized database, what you're left with is an annual report once a year that would look back at least a year out, maybe 2 years out, on what happened to the prior year. So that, that information can be helpful in evaluating, what happened after a policy passed and trends. But if you're dealing with jails and things change so quickly, and the more metrics and the more information we can put out there, the better that we can all answer these questions. And so that's really what the system is about, is really meeting the needs of the commission, the policymakers, people who have urgent questions and need urgent answers.
And we certainly understand the need for what you're doing, because we want our legislature and other people to make informed decisions and have this data available to them. There are a number of bills that have to do with sentencing right now, and they have no information to be able to know the impact of those sentencing bills. So that's the type of thing. The requesting funds, is it through the budget or is it through a separate bill? And if it's a separate bill, can you give us the bill number?
Yes, so it is House Bill 68. It is a separate bill. We're administratively attached to the judiciary, but we are partnering across branches, across agencies, and so submitted this as a specific appropriation request so that we could really discuss what this system is and explain how it'll help all the agencies in the criminal justice system with this work.
Okay. I'm trying to see if I have House Bill 68 on our list.
It's on the list.
It is?
I'll wait in case if there's questions or in more detail that you want, I can pull it up, but I'll leave it to you all because I know you have the full agenda.
It's on your first page, Martha.
It's on the first page?
Yes.
And I hope that we move along though, Marcia. I got 10 pages of stuff.
Yeah. So for everybody who's participating, we do have on the at our website the list of the bills we're going to discuss today, if anybody wants to pull that up. And I'm going to ask Kristen, can we schedule Aaron to meet with us either next, the February meeting? I know legislature can interfere with what we're doing, but I'd like to see your whole presentation, Aaron. Okay, let's start through the bills. The first bills we're going to discuss are 4 bills that are commission related. 2 of them are bills that we asked to be introduced, having to do with extending the term of the oversight coordinator from 2 years to 6 years, allowing us to, right now the law is very clear that the coordinator must maintain confidentiality, and we are mandated to work with these complaints. But we don't have that mandate for confidentiality, so we're adding that the commission also must maintain confidentiality. And the last measure had to do with, we wanted to rearrange the wording in the oversight's powers, that the oversight coordinator can enter a facility for any reason, not just subject to an investigation. And so that's HB 1132 and SB 455. And again, we drafted those bills. During this meeting, commissioners, we need to start assigning who is going to be the testifiers. In my opinion, I think it is important that we as commissioners be seen by the legislature, that it cannot just be staff that's being seen. They need to be acquainted with us. So I'm also going to ask we go through this and people identify what they're interested in being the testifying on. So first of all, I would like to do the first 2 because I drafted the bill, if that's okay.
Fine with me.
Okay.
Yep.
Then the next 2 expand our responsibilities. And Wakai in particular, Senator Wakai was very interested in having us have responsibility to review corrections budget, both their CIP and their operating budget. And so I think that's up to us to discuss what is our appropriate role in overseeing the corrections system and responding to a bill like this. Comments, anyone?
Well, Martha, unless it's clearly in our wheelhouse, I think we need to proceed cautiously and maintain credibility. I don't want to micromanage or macromanage the department. We're oversight. That's my view. And my colleagues may disagree, so anyway, that's my take, my quick and dirty take.
And I agree with you, Mike. I don't want us to be micromanaging the department. The department has their responsibilities. Ted, do you have comments on these bills?
I think we had a chance. Wakai asked us to comment on his version of the bill, and we did. And we recommended some amendments, which I believe he accepted. Gannigan's version, I think, it goes beyond the scope of our responsibility, and it makes us operationally responsible for some things, which I think is, not our role.
So on SB 454, do we do support intent? Do we want to make amendments to that? And HB 861, it sounds like we're hesitant about supporting that.
I agree.
Can I add something? This is Kat.
Kat, it is supposed to be just the commissioners who are talking,
okay.
But I know that you have a lot of information we may not have, so if you can be very brief.
Well, yeah, no, just on 454, the thing that really jumps out for me is we know what the commission's mission is, and what if the department is recommending things that are totally contrary to our mission? And how do we actually make a real Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation? Mm-hmm. Not just in name, but in practice. How do we do that? So I just think a little oversight for those kinds of things would be like, then I would think the coordinator would call a director and say, hey, I know you're asking for this, but what if you thought about it this other way? Or, so that there'd be a real give and take.
I believe that we're recommending for Senate Bill 454 that we do support that measure, Wakai's measure. And we're more hesitant on Ganadin's measure because he really has us more or less being able to do things that are the department's responsibility. And we don't want to step on toes that way. Okay?
No, yeah.
Okay. Who would like?
Quick question. Were you going to testify for 454?
I'm going to ask whether Ted might be willing to do that one since he was in the meeting.
Sure.
And so 861, who would like to take that one? Because it's going to be non-support.
I think the two kind of go hand in hand. I think my understanding is that they both wanted to accomplish the same thing, put some oversight over the departments. It started with the capital improvements projects, building new prisons, and it sort of migrated to include other parts of the budget. But so I think the two are similar in terms of direction. So if I had what's the number? Ganadin's bill, what I would testify to is that we support the intent, but we prefer the Senate version.
Okay, so can you take that one on?
Sure.
Thank you. The next is bail and pretrial detention. Last year, Ron assumed our bail bills. And so I asked Ron that you look at these carefully.
Yeah, Martha, you sent us a package bill review as of 7:30 Monday.
Uh-huh.
Is that the list we're working on now?
No, I sent a new one.
When was that? Well, that's okay. Can you just mention the bill numbers? I guess I can just look at the bill numbers when you're going.
Okay. HB 1040 is related. This is a bill that was introduced as part of the governor's package, and it comes from the Department of Public Safety. And this is relating to periodic reviews of detainees, which is required by law right now. And the Department of Public Safety is asking that they not be required to do that. My opinion is we disagree very much with that, that they should be required to do that.
Yes. Okay.
I don't even see that on the list.
Yeah, it's HB 1094, and the companion bill is SB 1392.
1094?
HB 1094. Yeah, and it has a companion, SB 1392. Yeah. And this one, Ron, this isn't specific to bail. It's the review, doing additional reviews when someone is incarcerated. Mm-hmm. So I don't want just to... Well, first of all, what are people's opinion about this? I do not support this at all.
I'm in agreement with you, Martha.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it's a pretty cynical move by the department. The last year they asked for a bunch of positions where they see the Act 179 reforms, not Act 179, but some reforms that were tied to the task force's recommendations. And they got the positions made permanent last year. And I believe this bail review was part of those reforms. And now they're coming in and say it's not worth it. They've made over 1,000 reviews and very few got approved. They should stop doing it. Yeah. So if they want to repeal this, I would suggest that maybe they...
Okay. Yeah, and Kristen sent me the bills again. Thanks.
Oh, okay. Okay, the next one is a companion to the one we just discussed. So again, that would be with Ron because it's the exact same bill. HB 1172 is, this was introduced by Jean Ward, who Republican and probably will not be getting a hearing, but it could. So 1172, it authorized the court to release the defendant in custody on unsecured bail, which I think is already allowed by the law.
Yes, it passed in 2019, Act 77. So this is almost, I just compared, that's why I was late for the meeting, because I just compared the 2019 bill with this, and it's, it's scored, and it's all the stuff that's in the CD1 for 192. So it's just a little, it's just in the section 1, they talk about the, how they did 1,000 things and, hardly any could be released.
So Ron, this would be a non-support that it's already in the law. Do you want to take that one on too? Good chance it won't have it again. It's been introduced by, I'm sorry to say, by a Republican. That often stops things from being heard. Okay, SB 350, bail release detention, and this eliminates the use of monetary bail and requires defendants to be released on their own recognizance for more or less the things that we had last year, Ron, in the bill. Do you want to take that one too? It really is very similar to last year's bill. And HB 79, presumption that a person charged with a crime is entitled to unconditional release. I didn't look at all these bills. I looked at the summary of the bills. Some of them I did look at. Requires the court to consider conditioning pretrial release on non-financial conditions before ordering bail if unconditional release is inappropriate. That was introduced by the chair of the Public Safety. Ron, can I put that into your package? Yeah. Thank you. SB 1168, automatic expungement. Oh, I'm surprised that I should have put this under the miscellaneous. This is really, God, I'm surprised I have this under the bake, but criminal records having automated. I support right now what an offender has to do. They must submit a request to the Department of the Attorney General to have their record expunged, where if it was built into the law that after so many years of no rearrest, reconvictions, or anything else, it will automatically come off your record. And again, this is to help with the reentry process and continue in the community because you had a felony conviction.
Martha? As a footnote, when I was on the parole board, if something goes to the Attorney General, it takes way too long and it gets micromanaged and fly specced. Things have to be automatic and they have to have a time frame. Otherwise, it's a rabbit hole of bureaucracy. So I'm for all these that we can clean up quickly without a lot of bureaucracy. And expunsion is one of it, and also, well, there's a bunch of other ones in there too. We'll talk about. Thank you.
Mike, would you be willing to take this one on?
I'm not going to go in front of the committee. I'll send a Barracuda letter unless they want to see me. Yes.
Or if you can at least draft the testimony for us and someone else can go. Okay.
12
facilities get from phone companies, and we were wondering how that's used, and they just keep saying it's for recreation, and we never get anything more.
Yeah. Commissioners, how do you feel about this bill? Should we support, non-support, support intent? I say support this measure. That's my opinion.
I agree.
Sorry, Martha, what was that you said?
Senate Bill 1219 that I support it, and Mike has agreed that he supports it. Ron, what's your opinion?
Well, I have no opinion. I'll defer to you folks.
Okay.
Kind of law.
And unfortunately, Mark is not here, so
well, you need a quorum vote.
Members. So I'm recommending that we support, and I'll be willing to take on this one. So the other two members that are Yeah.
I'm
Ted.
texting him.
Somebody
He's
mark
gonna text him, let him know.
He's good.
Mark Eddie.
Got him.
Well, anyway, I'm going to put in my vote right now that we support HB 823 and SB 456 concerning inmate deaths.
I think we have 3 of the 5, and Ted will come here. Okay, now there he sees his cell.
Good. Okay. I'll get back on.
Ted, we're discussing the inmate death bills, HB 823 and SB 456. I am recommending that we support both these measures.
Okay.
Mike Town, how do you feel?
Yeah, I mentioned yes.
Oh, and Ron?
Yep.
I'm willing to take this on if it's okay.
Okay.
Okay, programming and reentry. HB 1129 has to do with education for women with Winmore Community College. And again, this was introduced by the chair of the House Public Safety Committee, so it most certainly would get an appropriation. I am in support of this. Is there any one of the, I can't speak for Mark, but any one of the 5 of us that want to focus on women's bills? Oh, I don't hear anybody volunteering. Okay.
Well, if y'all heard what the Chief Justice said, it's going to be a big deal in front of the legislature, and should be in front of the judges. They have a women's court. We have a girls' court. As long as it's within our wheelhouse, Martha, I don't want to get outside of our culiana, so to speak. Is this within our wheelhouse?
So maybe, we have to be cautious we don't take too much on, and so that's a very good point. So maybe we should just not respond to this bill at all, not track it.
Well, kind of,
Yeah.
we can come back to it, but I mean, the women are really important. And fortunately, I have 1 wife and 4 granddaughters, so I'm all for it, but I don't know if it's within our wheelhouse.
And I think you're right, Mike. So I'm going to recommend we skip this one.
Thank
We
you.
don't take a position on it because if we take on too much, we're not going to be able to keep up with all the legislation. Okay. 1136, HB 76, I'm sorry. And this appropriates funds for a comprehensive approach to successful prisoner reentry and integration, which provides support to inmates that are while incarcerated and after their release. I did not look at this carefully. Did anybody have a chance to review this bill any more carefully? Well, we need to review this bill, so. Kat, do you have any comments on this?
Why do we pass on it? A little. Gannon introduced it, and it keeps mothers and kids together, and it's more. I think it's a little more operational, but maybe just pat Kanalua on that one.
Okay. HB 451 is, this one is just extending 1 year in which the department can expend funds for a pilot visitation and resource, family resource center. And I didn't look at the previous law, but they might have written a way that the money expired too soon. So I would say support this so that could happen, but do we need to from being a member of the commission? No, pass on this one. Okay. I like that.
You're muted if you're trying to say something.
It's actually asking for additional funds so the original funds, 430,000, doesn't lapse, but also additional funds to build an ADA compliant restroom near or in the renovated visitation and resource center.
This one sounds familiar, like we may have supported it last year. Let me check. I think I drafted testimony on this last year, and so it would be easy for me to redo it.
Okay. HB 454, which is reentering housing childcare. And this, I think we should just pass on. It's really the Department of Human Services. It was introduced by John Mizuno, who continues to be the chair of the Human Services Committee. He's a very good guy. He's been supportive. But I really think it's a little bit too much for us to take on. It's very broad. So can we pass on this one? People agree with that? I need some feedback, folks.
I agree. Well, Martha, if you make a recommendation and I'm silent, I'm acquiescing. It's against my Irish culture, but
But you're the judge. You're the judge. You're not supposed to acquiesce. You're supposed to make
it. Yes, you are. Shakespeare said the judge that decides best decides least.
Martha, quick clarification for HB 451. That was a support.
Support, and Ted will be the one testifying.
Thank you.
Okay, so anyway, we are passing, I got to get back to the page, passing on HB 453, now SB 502. This was introduced by Chris Lee, and it is to that inmates engaged in labor or vocational training get minimum wage. And unless they give us a lot of money, public safety is not going to be able to do that. Should we just pass on this one and not your comment?
Pass.
Pass, okay. HB 1232, women, and this is about breastfeeding. I'm going to suggest we pass on this one also.
Okay.
Yep.
I picked up everything I could, folks. I have a habit of doing that. I'm perfectly fine with us taking things off it. Okay, the Women's Community Correctional Center and using the number of cameras and body cameras. And so there are two bills, HB 1235 and SB 1470. And I want comments about that. Should we take a position?
I'd like to ask Kristen what she thinks.
Okay, I definitely think the commission should take a position on this one. And the reason why I bring that up is because previously I've publicly stated how I think only 30% of the cameras are working in the women's facility. I'm really concerned about that because PREA and many other reasons, obviously. So I think this kind of lines up with that.
I agree.
I have one comment on the bill, Martha.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think if the intent of this is to prevent or minimize sexual assault of women, then it should be expanded to all facilities that house women, specifically HCCC, KCCC, and MCCC. OCCC is supposed to move to WCCC, so otherwise I would say OCCC also.
Okay, so expand to all facilities that have women. So that would be support with amendments. And who would like to do the testimony on this one? Kristen, I'm going to ask, can you do the testimony on this one?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay, and the next one again is the same one as before that we passed on. It is the women getting trained or getting education from the community colleges. We're just going to pass on that. Solitary confinement. This is very important to us. And I did have a discussion with Kristen on this, and it, like SB 347 restricts the use of solitary confinement. Kristen, can you just share what you told me about Rikers Island when they were eliminating versus restricting?
Yes. Rikers Island had their solitary confinement completely banned, and it came on kind of quickly for the department. And so they were 100% unprepared in trying to keep people safe. And so slashings went through the roof. They didn't have any type of like violent step down program for people. So years later they did. I mean, they managed to figure it out years later. But when solitary was first banned, it was pretty disastrous on the department's part for not prepping for that. So I just brought up to Martha that I was a little bit concerned about that, not because I'm in support of solitary confinement, but because I want to make sure that people don't get hurt if it's taken away too quickly and the department isn't prepared for that. That was my only concern.
I support restricting solitary confinement. I will admit again, I did not look at the bill itself, read the bill. I just have this summary here. So I don't.
I did.
So yeah.
I looked at this bill, Martha. I think a lot of what's in the bill as regards the conditions under which someone is placed in solitary confinement should already be in policy in the department. It's simply that they haven't been doing it. That's what happened in the O'Malley case. That's point one. So if the department has trouble implementing that portion, then shame on them. The second point I want to make is that if you look at who's locked up in solitary confinement in the department, you're going to find a large percentage of them are there by classification. And this bill talks in terms of discipline and administrative segregation, protective custody, but not classification. People get classified max and are thrown in the hole. And this goes on for entirely too long. And I think that this needs to be addressed also. And the third point is that what I like about this bill is it requires the department to create pathways out of this confinement, and I think that's really important. So not only do you limit the amount of time someone can be put in such confinement, but you also have to create ways for them to get out and stay out. So I think it's a good bill. If I were the director, I wouldn't like it, but I think it's a good bill.
And will it be support with amendments then? Should we be suggesting some amendments?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Ted, do you want to take those on?
I was afraid of that.
No, but is that okay with you?
It's okay.
Thank you. So both those bills, that'd be SB 347 and HB 1280. It didn't say in the report that they were companion bills, but they appear to be companion bills.
One more thing about the bill. It says solitary confinement, but if in the definition of solitary confinement, it says where someone is put in a cell with no more than one other person, so it's not solitary confinement.
Yes.
So let me do some research. I think the updated terminology is restrictive housing.
Yes.
And finally, one more thing. I believe, and Kat, you may have picked this up in the bill, but I think it talks about the public safety facilities, but also facilities contracted by public safety. So this could put affect the Arizona facility.
Yes, it does.
So it's a pretty far-reaching.
Okay,
I think it's a national trend. Everybody in the country is moving in that direction.
Yes. Yes. Staff enrichment. We could pass on these bills. They're given the amount of time that we have to be writing testimony and attending hearings. I mean, I think we generally support that anything to assist with staff enrichment take place. Anybody have comments on these four bills? Like a trauma-informed certificate program, what I'm thinking about is the union, unless it's going to make a difference in what they get paid or something, how's the union going to feel about this, that we're expecting people to go get certificates? I don't know. I just don't know what to do with this.
Did you hear the Chief Justice yesterday said 80-90% of the women suffer from trauma. So it's a major contributor to not only their incarceration, but to their rehabilitation to address it. Now, whether that's within our Kuleana, our wheelhouse, that's a separate matter. It's a giant issue. It was emphasized yesterday by the CJ Rechtenwald.
I can certainly see us supporting bills that would require the Department of Public Safety to implement trauma-informed programs. But this is about training other people about it. So it's staff enrichment. That's why I'm suggesting we just pass on.
Yes. I'd like to ask Kristen what she thinks about this bill, because I know, Kristen, you've been in communication with the union. My thinking, I haven't read these bills, but my thinking is that if our responsibility is to help the department move the system to a real rehabilitative system, then if we don't address the line staff, then it's going to be a very difficult hill to climb. So I think in that regard, I think it does fit with our mission. So, Kristen, you have any thoughts?
No, I think I'm in the same space as you, Ted. I'm just kind of looking through them. I mean, trauma-informed certificate. I mean, it's all good stuff. The only thing that concerns me is I just don't know when these people are going to be able to even get the training at a community college, because they're all working 16 or 24-hour shifts consistently. I don't know. It's not a bad bill. I'm just, in my head, I'm just trying to process, like, what would this look like on the ground? You know what I mean? Like, is this achievable?
Well, notice the two bills, HB 1130 and SB 712, they talk about giving the funds to Windward Community College. So clearly they're making this related to just to the women's facility. But what could happen is that the college could be providing the program in the correctional facility. So someone comes to work an hour, 2 hours early and goes through the course, or, successive weeks, but does it that way. They could be going into it.
I agree we should support this.
Okay.
A quick note for HB 467, it looks like this is to do a work training program to assist nonviolent incarcerated individuals.
Right.
No, I'm thinking, that one is a little bit too difficult to implement.
It's from last session.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they could do, I don't want to give the Department of Public Safety excuses. It's just hard to think about the current.
No, but I mean, how would public safety do that? They have a cadre of social work students that are only supposed to be working with nonviolent offenders. It should be all offenders if they're going to be working with offenders, not just nonviolent offenders.
Right. Okay.
So on that one, I have now support for HB 1130 and support for SB 712, which is about trauma-informed certificate programs. HB 467, I would say we just pass on that one. Ted, you got comments on that one?
No, I'm not. I remember this from last year, but I'm not familiar enough with it.
I just don't see how you implement a program where they only work with certain offenders, not all offenders. What would be the purpose of that? But
I mean, I guess you could so far with amendments if that's the only concern.
So what should we do with that one? So please, someone else speak up. HB 467.
Pass for the moment.
Okay.
There's a lot of people that signed up for that.
All right. The next one I have crossed out. HB 775 is really about responding to arrest. And it talks about law enforcement. So it's really referring to the sheriffs, not to public safety. I mean, not to corrections. And as I told Kristen, most of the work that's done in this area is by our local police departments, not by the sheriffs. So I'm just going to say we should take this off the list because it doesn't affect corrections.
So the only thing I will say is that because this is specific to people who are unsheltered, have addictions or mentally impaired, that is a really large percentage of the jail population. So I could see this program as a way to lessen the jail population if it goes through.
But again,
I don't know if I'm getting in the weeds here, but
yeah, it's directed towards law enforcement, though not to corrections. That's why I'm saying I think we should just eliminate it from.
But the impact would be on corrections, because if it can be diverted away from arrest, then they wouldn't come to corrections. I think that was the thinking. Is this?
I understand that thinking. Yeah, go ahead.
Is this the police have a similar program? I'm wondering if this is intended to create a similar program for the sheriffs. And if so, what we could do is write just a very brief testimony and support and simply submit it as written testimony.
Okay.
So it's kind of like the LEAD program that they do in Honolulu.
Yeah, I haven't read the bill, but this is what it seems to be.
You know, I certainly understand it can impact the correctional population. It's just that it's directed at law enforcement, and I was recommending that we stay more, as Mike says, in our wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Research and data, and this is where Erin is a member. Is she still here, Erin?
She's here.
Okay.
Okay, wait, Martha, for the ones that are support/written testimony only, do we have anybody who's interested in those for HB 1130, for example?
How about you, Kristen?
Okay.
Kristen, on HB 1130 and SB 712, talk to Mark about that, because Mark did a lot of work around trauma-informed care when he was at the women's facility.
Yes. Oh, maybe Mark can do the testimony for that one.
Yeah, that'll teach him not to show up for the meetings.
I signed him up /me so I can help if he is unable.
Okay, research and data. And I will say that research and data has been something that's interested me, that I've been involved with in corrections for a very, very long time. So I'm willing to take on some of these bills, but we have to decide what bills we're going to take out. So the first one is having UH do a study on gender parity for in programs for incarcerated women. Position, how do people feel about this? Do we pass because nobody has any comments? Okay, I'm going to put pass. The Criminal Justice Research Institute Centralized Data System Appropriation. So Erin, got support on that one, of course. Erin must have her mic off.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah, and please let me know if there's other questions, or we can set up an additional time to talk more and make sure that we cover how it'll relate to your work.
Okay, and I'll take on that one if it's okay with everybody else, because again, it's been an interest of mine. Okay, HB 100. This is the Criminal Justice Working Group for sharing data, and this one they do list data elements that would be in there. So again, I want to make sure we're not conflicting with what Erin's work is. I do like the fact that it's identifying what the data elements are. So Erin, your comments on HB 100?
Sure. So just to be clear, I don't want to speak on behalf of the prosecutor's office. So definitely, I think it'd be helpful to have them really clarify the intent of the bill. But based on our discussions this week, we don't see a conflict in the work that we're doing. The way I understand the purposes of what they're doing is a little bit different, and they are creating a task force first to do it. So if anything, just again, my understanding at this time is that continued kind of collaboration, keeping them updated on the pretrial database and reporting system could potentially help inform some of the work they're doing, and just ongoing collaboration be, helpful with whatever direction their task force goes, if that were to happen.
I'm a little concerned about having a task force where you already have a group that's working with you on data, and people are not going to be attending both meetings. I would recommend we take a position that we really should be looking at what already is in place and supporting that. How do you think this differs from what you do, Erin?
Sure. I think, and again, so far my understanding is that the real difference lies in we're creating a centralized data source for research purposes. Whereas my understandings in the discussion so far is they're interested in figuring out how, it's called data sharing, but I believe it's a little bit more like information sharing, like being able to access information related to cases in a more operational fashion, which in some ways could impact research later on, depending on how that works. But in terms of how technology gets developed to do that, how data sharing agreements get made to do that, the purposes of that and how that comes together, I do see that as being different in its own way.
Well, how about support intent, but we are concerned about if there's any conflict with what your group is doing?
Okay. And I can...
I'm aware of that.
Sure. And I, in fact, like I said, we met and we're able to clarify. And I just wanted to make sure that I have a chance to confirm I interpreted what they were saying correctly. And so maybe it'd be helpful for all of us or for me to coordinate with them to clarify any questions that you might have, or, get any remaining answers that you have before we talk again. Yeah. And
I will, as I draft testimony for this, I'll be working with you. Okay. And again, the criminal justice data sharing against it's from the city and county. So it's like the companion bill. It didn't say so on the bill. So the same HB 100 and SB 210, I'm sure, are companion bills. Same testimony for both. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And one thing I'm surprised, though, Erin, you referred to it as the prosecutors. It used to be the prosecutors put in a separate package, separate from the city and county of Honolulu. It sounds like that might have changed.
No, they did. They put in their own package.
So, okay.
And I should be clear that I met with the prosecutor's office regarding the bill. So, so I'm not speaking to the county either, but just based on our discussion so far. Yeah.
Okay. And then gender parity programs for incarcerated women. Again, it's the University of Hawaii conducting did we set a pass on that on the last one?
Yes.
Yeah. We would encourage it, but we don't need to be submitting testimony. Okay, parole and compassionate release. There were a number of bills that, Mike and Ron, I'm hoping that you can help clarify these because I really didn't know about it. For minimum terms, that in the setting of a minimum term, these are allowing defendants to appeal to the Intermediate Court of Appeals. So I would appreciate if we could have some feedback from our judges about these review of fixing minimum terms of imprisonment.
Let me just ask Ron and see if we're in sync here. Ron, I think we're the only state in the union where we set minimums. It's right. It's usually the judges. It's not the parole board. Am I wrong on that, Ron?
That's what I've heard. Yeah. And,
yes.
So if I had my way, I think we should not even be setting, we meaning the parole board, and I was on it 8 years, setting the minimums. Having said that, what can I say? We should do everything to soften that. Otherwise, it's two bites at the apple. And that makes no sense to me. It's a lot of work. And quite frankly, the parole board is a quasi-judicial group. When I was on the parole board, not everybody understood that. So I'm for softening it as we go along, but that's only a gentle preference.
So for me, when I looked at the what they call truth in sentencing, because public, when a court right now sentences somebody to the max, right? The open 5, 10, 20, or life, basically the public thinks that's what they're going to get because the judge says it.
Yes.
But when Mike says the parole board sets the time, minimum time for parole and the actual parole time. But I was, concerned as a judge when I was sitting as a judge because I always thought that sometimes the determinant sentence for misdemeanors, which the court sets, right? The court says if it's a 1 year max for misdemeanor, you're going to serve 6 months, and you don't get out because it's a determinant 6. It will not be set by the prison or the jail. It's the court sets that. But when I looked overall, I thought, why did they do this to have the parole board sets the minimum? Well, I thought about it, and judges are different throughout the state. So if a person committed a crime, everything being the same, 2 people did this crime, everything being the same, one being sentenced in Kona, one being sentenced in Kauai, they might get different sentences, maximum or minimum, or they go out on parole. So I thought, well, the parole board can adjust all that, make it fair and similar throughout the state. So there's no judge shopping, forum shopping, because some people want the easy judge, some people want the hard, whatever. And so I thought there must be a reason, and I thought that was pretty good. Secondly, when we judge set the minimum, we don't know the performance of the inmate or the defendant. We only got the prior record. So, the 6 months period for the parole board to set the minimum gives public safety time to evaluate how the programs that they completed or how they behaved while incarcerated. Judges, if we go on the outset, you're coming in, you're going to get this minimum. I don't have everything. I don't, I don't know how we can take in consideration the person's programs the person completed within 6 months, the attitude, the write-ups and things like that. So, I'm all in favor for Mike continuing the parole board, setting the parole minimum, even though we are the minority in the United States.
These 2 bills specifically talk about a defendant being allowed to appeal their minimum term to the Intermediate Court of Appeals. Should we take a position on this particular bill?
I don't think we should, but although I like the idea because it's you get still the uniformity. The whole thing is everybody treated equally, right, throughout the state. And ICA is a state, so it looks at throughout. So they'll have statistics throughout the state, so how they viewed cases throughout the state. It's not one jurisdiction.
Yeah, depending upon who's the parole chair or parole boards, they can change a lot. And I do remember when we had under Linda Lingo, we had a parole chair that was setting the minimum at the maximum.
Yes.
Doing that often. And finally, the Supreme Court told them you cannot do that. That was Altafono. That you can't do that.
Review.
So what you were bringing up, Ron, about disparity between how long people were serving in prison for the same behavior, regardless of how they're acting in prison, really, there's a lot of disparity that happens when we have changing parole chairs and parole boards. Anyway, so I'm going to recommend we pass on both of these and not talk about them appealing, not address that. Is that okay?
I agree.
Me too.
Agree.
Okay, HB 737 has to do with compliance credit. So it authorizes the paroling authority to award credits to parolees for compliance with terms and conditions. And right now, the parole board can reduce the minimum of someone upon request. I don't know how often that happens. Mike, can you address this particular bill?
Yeah, I think it's done with a lack of due process. They don't really have a hearing. We just review it at the tail end of a long week and a long day and willy-nilly. And I think it should be reduced and it should be very thoughtful. And I think the public defender should be involved. We tend to be very draconian. If somebody keeps their nose clean, doesn't have misconducts and does their programs, I would reduce them dramatically. I was a distinct, I think, minority. I may be wrong on that. So, yes, it should be reduced.
So this has
support
to do with, compliance when they're already on parole. And so the parole can also end parole supervision.
Right.
Because parole primarily is 5 years, and they can decide after 3 years, someone based on their behavior can go. So Mike, I'm really going to rely on you. What do you think we should do on this one?
Support it.
Support. Okay. And you want to take on the testimony for that one?
Yep.
Thank you. HB 824 relates to medical release and compassionate release. Opinions? I believe we should support this.
Definitely. This is a disaster nationally at the federal and state level. If somebody's 60 in prison, there might as well be 80 medically.
Yep.
And that they're not, and they don't leave with discharge plans. I've yet to see the doctors step up. Who's our prison doctor now? Gavin Takinaka?
He's in charge of
healthcare.
Yeah.
I'd like to see.
It's not an MD though.
He's not? Well, he should be.
PhD, psychologist.
But I used to have a doctor come in at the parole board and say, let this bugger out. He's not doing well. He's no harm.
They have a medical director in addition to Gavin, but I understand that position is vacant.
Yeah.
The one that was there, I think he passed away, is wonderful. He's compassionate. He's everything a doctor should be.
I am very much in support of this measure. Other people's comments?
I am.
Ron?
Yep.
So who wants to take it on? Oh, Ted, go ahead.
No, I don't want to take it on. But my understanding is the real issue here is finding placements.
Yes.
Right. I think at the last meeting, Bob talked about an 87-year-old person who died and Leahi Hospital refused to take him.
And if you remember going back many years, Ted, that one person that Kim was working very hard on finding placement, he ended up maxing out in prison. His family could not take him, and he died in prison after his sentence was over.
California built a hospital in Vacaville for those kind of folks because they didn't know where to put them. Yep. So they made a decent, compassionate place for them.
Well, Vacaville is like their medical unit for the California system.
Correct.
So anybody volunteering for this one? Because we should be supporting it.
I'll help.
I can do it with Mike. I can help.
Okay, thank you.
Consult with Bob Merce.
Oh,
yeah,
he has plenty information.
Oh yeah. I have him on speed dial. He'll get a call.
Okay, the next one, again, we're going to pass. That's, again, having the courts review minimum terms. And also for SB 977 is pass. And again, the next one is pass. I just wanted to bring it to your folks' attention, but I think we should stay out of that one. Okay, juvenile justice. This is the big question. From our statute is found with the adult statutes primarily, and we've been focusing on adult. How involved should we get with the juvenile justice system?
I think we should steer clear.
I think we have enough on our plate right now.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Okay, so the juvenile justice ones, we're just going to steer clear, okay? So all of them will be passed.
Yeah, Martha, when we've been saying pass or steering clear, sometimes something may come up, we can revisit again.
Yes. In light of new information. Okay, sentencing and increased sanctions. Now, I put these on here because, of course, sentencing laws can impact us very much, impact corrections very much. And in the past, when I was with the department, when we would have sentencing laws, often we would not take a position on them increasing the crime or the sentence. We would just say, we ask that you consider the impact on corrections. And we did from 2000 to 2003 have a sentencing simulation model where we were actually able to provide them with data about that. But unfortunately, the legislature did not continue to fund it after the grant money ran out, even though they kept on asking us for the information. So first of all, do we want to take a stand on sentencing bills? Or do we want to pass on them? So up to you folks. If there's no comment, I'm going to say pass. So should we pass on sentencing bills?
Yes.
I'm just going to throw in that sentencing has a huge impact on the amount of people who are incarcerated. That's the only
We
comment.
understand that, believe me.
Yeah.
We understand that.
But even
But
if
in
the
mind, that's still.
Martha, I just want to point out, I haven't read any of these bills. I just ran out of time. But Senate Bill 1433, it seems introduced by Senator Moriwaki. I'm wondering if this is a Waikiki bill.
If it's a what bill?
A Waikiki bill.
Oh, it could easily be a Waikiki bill.
Yeah, and I know there was an interesting article about a week and a half ago about that Safe and Sound program, I think they call it.
Yeah.
And Steve Alm was quoted in the paper as saying that the vast majority of the arrests they have made are of what he calls quality of life crimes, like harassment and urinating in public, and not really serious crimes. They are serious crimes, but the vast majority are not. And I think there's a lot of frustration among the in the Waikiki community, and I don't blame them. But I'm wondering if their solution to this is to lock them up for longer periods of time to keep them out of Waikiki, and if so, then it definitely will start to impact our work.
Yes.
I, of course, am against this bill, but as a commission, we have to decide whether we want to take a position on it.
I think it goes hand in hand with our position on the new OCCC. I think we have to sort out who is appropriate to be locked up in jail before we build the facility, decide to build a facility. And if we're going to have bills like this, then we better make it even larger. So I think we ought to take a stand.
Okay, and the stand will be non-support?
Non-support.
Which number was that one more time?
This is 1433.
Thank you.
And assign it to?
I'll take a track.
Thank you.
And I also am looking at House Bill 265, and what catches my eye is mandatory minimum.
Yes.
And I hate to go back to those days, because I remember those days when we had mandatory minimum for anything related to crystal methamphetamine.
Yes.
Yeah, you get caught with an ice pipe with residue and you automatically go to prison.
That's
and we had a bunch of them.
But it also was what the prosecutors used, because they liked it, because they'd use it in their negotiation with the defendant. You turn over someone else to me and I won't put crystal methamphetamine into the indictment. And all these mandatory minimums for methamphetamine and fentanyl, as I only looked at one of them, but it was like any amount of fentanyl would be a 20-year term with mandatory minimums.
How many addicts actually know how much fentanyl is in their dose? Come on, it's crazy.
So pass on the rest of them, but do submit testimony for SB 1433. Is that my understanding? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, wait, so not for HB 265? That's the mandatory minimum one.
No.
Yeah.
265 mandatory minimum.
What we're going to testify on is SB 1433, which is extending petty misdemeanor and misdemeanor crimes, and pass on the felony mandatory minimums. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. So HB 1133 now in miscellaneous. Again, this has to do with communication services, the telephone services. We already, what was our position on the other one?
And I was not part of the discussion.
Oh, that's right. I'll coordinate it with our other one so we don't have to discuss it again right now, okay? Whatever we decide on the other one, we'll do on this one too. Okay, HB 585, which is restorative justice programs in the judiciary. I noticed this came from the Crime Prevention and Justice Caucus. Kat, can you tell me something about the Crime Prevention and Justice Caucus? Who is it made up of?
I don't know, but
I don't know either.
I suspect that a lot of the people who signed on to the more punitive ones, even though they're Dems, Holt, Keela, Lamasau, Nakashima, Nishimoto, Onishi, and Quinlan, kind of conservative.
Yeah.
So is Gannett in here? He's there. He's no conservative. No, he's not.
265?
Not
an HB. No, what I'm looking at right now. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I got too many pages here. I'm looking at HB 585.
Oh, restorative justice?
Restorative justice, yes.
One of the things
for the judiciary, do we support?
The CJ spoke about it yesterday in his State of the Judiciary speech. And the problem is that there need to be more trainers, more facilitators statewide, because right now on Oahu, Lauren Walker is kind of the queen of restorative justice. But on the other islands, it's there's not that many people who are trained. So the state should really put money toward training people who would be community facilitators.
Okay, it has appropriate funds. This bill is a funding bill. It does have an appropriation in it. So support?
Yeah.
Yes.
I would.
Ron?
Well, I don't know what the judiciary's position going to be.
So coordinate with the judiciary?
I would say, yeah, whatever they've, I think we should support them.
The CJ actually was in full support in his speech yesterday.
And Ron was there.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah. That was a great speech.
But yeah, it was. And, he's known for restorative justice and social justice, but certainly sometimes, the legislature mandates the judiciary to do something, right? And all I'm saying is, hey, if they agree, sure, let's support them. And we can't force them if they don't agree.
I hear you.
Take on this one. This is going to be support, but coordinate with the judiciary.
Yeah.
And whose name can I put next to as being the one responsible for drafting testimony and testifying?
Okay, well, I'll do it. Kristen?
With Kristen? Okay, so Ron.
Ron and I, you can do it together. We'll do a joint.
Okay.
So Ron and Mike?
Yeah.
Okay.
I taught this a couple of years at UH with Lauren, and it really works.
Okay, HB 751 is about restoring rights to felons, and maybe we should just pass on this because it's not a big thing for us. I just felt it's important to restore rights to felons. How do other people feel about that? It's about being allowed to serve on a jury.
Yeah, it's important, but I agree this does not fall within our Kuleana.
Yeah.
I agree.
I may have read it wrong. Reading clarifies that a prospective jury is disqualified to serve if they've been convicted of a felony and have not been finally discharged, in addition to not being pardoned. Right now, it says being. We're going to pass on that one. I didn't look at it close enough. Okay, UH Law School. Again, this is not really in our wheelhouse. Anybody interested in this? Criminal Legal System Institute for Restorative and Healing at the University of Hawaii. We can submit.
I think Mark might be involved in this.
Okay, so this may be written only, yeah?
Yeah,
So support written only, Mark.
if Mark wants.
Okay, SB 271. Purchasing the Federal Detention Center. I think we can just skip this one, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to skip the next one because it involves the phone calls again. We already discussed that. I'll address it later. So Ted doesn't have to step out. Again, restorative justice program. So I think this may be the companion bill to
585, House Bill.
Yeah, 585. Okay, Senate Bill 1168 is the automatic expungement. Didn't we talk about that before?
Yep.
So I'll just coordinate and make sure we have the same response for this one.
Yeah, that one was support, and Mike and me are putting that together.
Okay.
So we got one left, 1442.
We got two left.
Two
There's one
left.
I added today, so you should have gotten a separate thing with the last
I
one.
got
So
that.
first we have Senate Bill 1219. And again, that's the same with the telephone stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so 1442, mental health treatment diversion, probation violators. Position on this?
Oh, it's diversion.
Yes.
Exciting.
So it's keeping probation violators from going to prison and instead adding treatment conditions so they can continue on probation. So I would say support.
I agree.
I agree.
I agree.
Anybody want to take this on? Come on, folks.
Let's punt that one on account of tiredness
No, we can't do that.
or crabbiness.
Just for that, Mike, I'm putting your name down.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay, Mike and Kristen, thank you. Now, I didn't list all the short form bills that were introduced, but we will be keeping track of those. Those would have titles like, relating to public safety, and then it will say in the body of it, the purpose of this is to effectuate the title of it, and it could be filled in later on. So we will be tracking those short form bills. And if anything is added to them that impacts us, we'll bring it back to the commission to decide on that.
Good.
Can I say something about one of the bail bills?
Sure.
On SB 350, that bill is from 2021. And the reason it was included this year is that after the 2021 session, after the prosecutors killed that bill, Steve Alm was interviewed by Civil Beat, and they asked him, do you support this bill going through the legislature? Will you do it next year? And he said, we had some problems with the bill, but, they took out a lot of the exceptions. So, we could have lived with it after he killed the bill. So, so I'm thinking they supported this bill, and it's the CD, it's the one that, the last version of it. So they supported it then, and I think they should support it now.
Was this 350 the one the governor vetoed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was Wilson prosecutor.
Well, the other governor.
Yeah, right. It passed back. Right. And the sponsor took back his sponsor.
Yes.
Ron, didn't you do testimony last year?
I did. Yeah.
We can just dust up the old one.
Yeah.
Yeah, just recycle.
I got it.
Okay, so I will now be well, to submit testimony, we all should be on have passports onto the onto the legislative website. What we got to talk about is how we do a review process of the testimony. I am of the opinion that we should trust each other in what we write and not have to send out our testimony to have everybody review, because it's going to take a lot of time. Other people's opinions about that?
Martha, for me, I work about a quarter time mediating and arbitrating. If I have a hearing set with attorneys and rooms set aside and briefed, I won't be able to show up at the legislature, and I can submit unwritten testimony, or I can ask our colleague Kristen or one of you to go down there. I just need to put that out there up front. It's not like I'm fully retired, and I don't want to be fully retired. My wife doesn't want me home all the time. She's glad when I'm not underfoot.
So, Mike, for any, because Martha and I talked about this, and if there's ever a case where somebody needs help last minute, like I'll always be there.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to make sure that I'll be at all of these, or at least I'm really going to try. So
you're not going to have much of a life if you're going to be at all these hearings. But anyway, in drafting the bills, how should we handle, drafting the testimony, how should we handle that? Does everybody want to review testimony before it's submitted?
No, I agree that we trust the drafter, because I guess we're all in the field that we're interested in, and just submit copies to the rest of us.
And I'm of that opinion too.
Okay. How about format? Are we going to have a format? So
let's come up with a format. I have noticed that in previous ones, Mark was using what was the Department of Human Services format, where it's saying right up front, support, where in the past when I worked for public safety, what we would write in a very first sentence, the department has reviewed such and such, and supports the intent, does not support, we'd have it in the first sentence. So if anybody has any suggestions on format, but we'll come up with something.
Yeah, but should it all be on, I think it all should be on commission letterhead.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So Kristen, would you be able to help once we get the drafts?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you all
you can send us a template too.
Yeah, I'm happy to send you the template. But even if you send George or I like the body of what you wanted to say, we can clean it up so it's all consistent.
Okay.
Without changing any, we'll just.
What I also noticed in previous testimony that Mark was finalizing a lot of it, he didn't have the date and the time of the hearing. I volunteer at archives. That information is very important to know when these hearings took place. So I want to make sure that we have that on at the top of it, the date and the time of the hearing.
Martha, I'm very type A. I got you.
Okay.
So, again, with corrections, we would always make sure that we said the hearing is on, we're being heard in front of Public Safety Committee. It is on Monday, March 22nd at 1 p.m. in this room number. And again, for people doing research, and make sure that you're linking it to the right hearing.
Okay.
We'll get out a template very quickly. Okay.
I got to leave. I have a medical appointment that was rescheduled just this morning. So I'm sorry about that. It was supposed to be later in the day, but it was moved up. So I got to go. I
think we're going to be ending anyway, Ted. Thank you.
Okay. Thank
you. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, Ted.
Bye.
Bye. Are we done?
I think we're done. Anything else you got to add?
Our next meeting is the 16th of February at OCCC? Is that right?
Our next meeting is, the 16th, and it'll be in the same spot. So we're not going to have the meeting at OCCC. We'll have the meeting beforehand at whatever that building is, we have all the meetings.
Yeah,
and then from there,
DLIR.
yeah, and then from there, the commission will go to OCCC to tour.
So just so that George got the information for my transportation, how long do we expect the meeting at HCCC, at OCCC to last?
OCCC is a very large facility, and I had spoken to Ron about this, and I'd say it'd be about 3 hours.
Okay, so if I catch 4:30 flight, are we good?
Yeah,
Okay.
because we'll be very close to the airport. I'll be able to get you there on time.
Okay, Martha, thanks.
So are we going to take separate cars to OCCC, or can we?
We can carpool, so I always
think
bring
that'd
my
be good.
car, and we can carpool. And then, Mike, I can take you back home because I live in Palolo.
Yeah, and I could meet at DLNR there and then go with you or whatever. I'm happy. I'm in Kaimuki, so thank you.
You're at Manalani Heights. Don't say Kaimuki. I know
Well,
where you are.
I like to call it Kaimuki. It makes me comfortable.
All right, I'm in the suburbs of Kaimuki. I'm in Palolo.
Okay, so for next steps, I'm putting all this together. Martha, I'm going to send what I have to you just to absolutely triple check that I didn't mess anything up. And so if you can take a quick look, that'd be great. And then I'll get it posted on the website so that people can see how the commission's moving forward.
And Kristen, are you going to be forwarding us the hearing dates and of these bills that we said we're going to testify on?
Absolutely. Yes.
As soon as you get the hearing dates from the lead, so testimony is due 1 day before, right?
Yep. I'll make sure George and I are going to be putting together a spreadsheet and schedule, so we'll make sure we get everyone set. Quick question about that, actually. I keep checking for the criminal justice related committee meetings, and they haven't posted any yet. Is that normal?
What do you mean, hearings?
For the committees, for the
Yes.
committees?
Oh no, they do have the hearing. It is up. It is up now. So I wrote it down. In the House, they're meeting, I think, on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the morning, and like from 8:30 to noon. And in the Senate, it's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 3 to 4:30. And it has the room numbers in there. It's on the legislative website. Is that what you were asking?
Kristen, I think just to answer your question, generally, right after the bills are introduced, then they start the hearings.
Okay.
So everything is final today. And
So then they'll start scheduling. Okay, yeah, because I was looking at the House Committee on Corrections, Military, and Veterans, and then...
That's not the way to do it. You follow the bills. And so by looking at the bills, we can tell already some who have had referrals, many of them as of noon today did not even have referrals to committees yet.
Right.
And then but what you also need to know is when are the committees meeting?
Right. So that's what I'm talking about. So like the Senate Committee on Public Safety and Intergovernmental and Military Affairs, for example, like they don't have any.
They are going to meet on, the Senate?
Yeah.
House. No, the House, the corrections.
The House is meeting Tuesday and Thursday, 8:30 to noon.
Where did you?
Right.
Okay. We'll connect after.
It is on the internet. And then for the Senate, they're meeting Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3 to 4:30.
Okay.
And Carl Rhodes is already scheduled a hearing for Friday. He's going to be hearing the criminal procedure bill that we're going to pass on.
Okay.
But the best way, once we get all the bills, you know what bills we're going to pass on? Then under our login, we put in what bills we want to be notified on, and the notifications will come to an email to you.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be checking the hearing notices every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bill part I knew how to do. Okay, that's fine. Sounds good.
And so it is on the legislative website, the schedule for the rooms and what committees are meeting, what days and what times.
Okay.
I'll send it to you, Kristen. I have that.
Thank you, Kat.
And I'm going to be
Kristen,
testifying on lots of bills.
And Kristen, you and I can talk more tomorrow, okay?
All righty.
And getting up with the template, how we want our testimony to look, okay?
Perfect. Sounds good.
Thank you so much, everybody. We're going to end the meeting now.
Thank you, Martha.
Aloha. Happy New Year,
Aloha.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Aloha.